In this video, I'm going to show you a real conversation I had with my family members going over different investing and exit strategies for a property we all have together in Florida. You're going to get to see exactly what I'm thinking and what strategies are going to be best based on different scenarios and different factors. And just for a little background around this property, my dad bought this with a partner in 2005. His partner gave his share of his property to his daughter. They were paying property taxes year after year on this property all the way till 2019. She wanted out, so she sold her half of the property to my brother and I for a quarter share each of $3,500. Then I spent the next 2 years trying to figure out how I'm going to make this profitable for my dad because I bought it at such a low price it was going to work for me, but the land was actually worth $30,000 less than what he bought it for in 2005. So we built a house on the property thinking that we would flip it, but the market turned and made the property a little bit harder to sell and drop in value. So here's the conversation, and if you enjoy this transparent behind the scenes content, then please make sure to share this with one friend. This way I can keep helping more people like you. We're talking about the property in Florida. That's what it looks like, obviously. We're trying to decide what we are going to do with it. I outlined 4 options. First, we'll talk about renting it out long-term, which means like 1 year or more. Then renting it out short-term, which is like Airbnb. What we do if we sell it. And then a 4th option is to refinance, maybe pay out people who want to get out, restructure it and rent. So option 1 is a long-term rental. If we rent it out on a yearly basis, we'll make about $722 a month in cash flow with 18% ROI. This is assuming a few things. Right now, the taxes are $1,970 a year, but we're basing it off of a house nearby and what they have taxes for that are similar, that was just new build. They have taxes of $5,500. So we assumed that, okay, even if it was $1,000 more, so we assumed higher taxes than we would want. We also assumed $3,000 for insurance because insurance we're assuming would go up because obviously the home value went up and it's in Florida. It's not in a flood zone, so we don't need flood insurance, which is good. This is also assuming we keep the same mortgage, which is under Johnny's name, and then assuming 10% for management every single month, property manager, 5% for vacancy, 5% for capital expenditures, and then 5% for repairs. We had a property manager go through the property and they said that it could rent out for $38.50 a month, which is pretty high. The only con with this is that this is what the property manager said, who works in the area and based it off of rentals he has. I looked at Rentometer and Rentometer says it can only rent out for $2,300. The only way we will know is by actually listing it. I think the property manager's number is probably more accurate in this case because they went to the property, they looked at it, and they saw how much it was worth. Okay, so these are the pros and cons of doing this method. 1, we have really good cash flow. I think we could all assume that. 2, it's in great shape. 3, we're going to have great tenants for the area because it's going to be in great shape. It's going to be a higher quality rental. 4, we don't have to furnish it, right? 5, we have a really low interest rate mortgage right now, so that's a huge pro. And then 6 is we can hold it and sell it for higher. We can ride out the bottom of the market and hopefully 10, 15 years from now, sell it and cash out. The cons is that the loan is in Johnny's name. 2, is we're not going to make a lot of money on it now. We avoid paying high taxes by selling the property. That's a huge pro. I think that meant to be a pro, not a con. Another con was that Rentometer says it's lower, but management says it's $38.50. We talked about that. And then the other con is that you won't be able to go into the pool because someone will be living there. Option 2 is a short-term rental. Our cash flow monthly on a short-term rental is a little bit less than what our cash flow is on a long-term rental, surprisingly. And our cash-on-cash return drops because we have to put more money up front for the property. Cash-on-cash return is the money you make back in your first year divided by the money you put up front. I'm assuming we're going to have to furnish it for $30,000. Our return on investment is going to be lower because we're making about the same, but we're putting more into it. I'm assuming that we'll end up spending about $200 a month. I think this $200 a month was more for utilities or something like that. This is assuming we'll have $30,000 to do that, and where the hell is that money going to come from? This is also assuming we keep the same mortgage, and we're assuming the same amount of vacancy, capex, and repairs, but we'll have 20% management. This is the full analysis. The rental income is $5,025 a month, so it's higher rental income, but because we have higher management costs, and now we have to pay all of our utilities, it ends up being about the same cash flow wise. So when I ran that analysis, that's 67% occupancy rate. This is AirDNA with 243 daily rate. So to confirm that number, what I did was I went to Airbnb and I looked around the area to see what other homes that were like it were renting for. The average from these pictures was 250, so slightly higher than what we had there, but just to prove that it was accurate. So again, pros, good cash flow, good shape, less wear and tear with Airbnb because you might have like people come for half of the time than they would if they lived there the entire time, right? So you can imagine over 8 years of you doing that, if people are only in the property for half of the time, the wear and tear is not going to be as high as if people were living there the full time. Another pro is that you can visit the property when it's empty. You could block off your week. Another pro is that we have low interest rate, and then the other pro is that you could hold and sell it at a higher price. Cons, loans in Johnny's name. You're going to make a little money now. I think, again, this is meant to be a pro. 4, we have to furnish it, which is probably the biggest con of this method. 5 is we're basing the occupancy off this calculator. We don't know for a fact. It could be wrong. If it's a little higher, great. But if it's lower, then we're making less money than the long-term rental and we did more work for it. Option number 3 is to sell it. These assumptions were if we sold it at $470, which I'll show you the comparables soon, which is higher than average. The agent recommended to sell it at $470, but the average comps sold in the area were actually $450. And we're gonna lose $30,000 in closing costs by selling the house. And then when you pay taxes on it, if we assume a 20% effective tax rate, Papa's gonna make about $65,000 and me and Johnny would make about $32,000 each. And then we also have to pay Johnny interest on the mortgage that we owe. So the number's gonna be lower than what this is. This is the best case scenario. So this is the stats of the 5 comps that were available. The median house sold price max was $472. So again, that's max over the last couple months. The average was $447. And these were properties that were within the last couple of years built, around the same size, have pool, all that. And then these were the addresses of the properties individually that you could see of the sold prices, 472, 449, and 400. The pros of selling it is that it'll be a good ROI for me and Johnny, but it's profitable for Papa. We make money now, which is good for me. I could use the money right now. It doesn't make our situation more complex by having a brand new type of partnership that we would need, and we don't have to furnish it if we sell it. Cons, we're in a down market, so we might have to sell it for even less than average to try to get it sold quickly. We're gonna pay taxes on the money. We make no long-term cash flow from it, and we can't use it as a vacation home if we sell it. All right, option 4 is to refinance, pay out who wants to get out, and then keep it as a rental. If we do it this way, cash flow will be lower, about $269 with only about a 2% ROI, so it's not that high. This is assuming we refinance the property at a $450,000 value at a 9% interest rate with an LLC loan under a new LLC, whatever it is, at 65% LTV, meaning we leave 35% equity in the property, which means we cash out just enough to pay off the previous loan. We'd make a new LLC and cash out a couple $1,000s each. The reason why we would do this is because Johnny wants to sell 100%. I'm flexible for both options, although I'd rather sell, and Papa wants to keep it. So that's why we would do this method. Here's the numbers behind the whole thing. It's the same rental amount, $3,850. I forgot to tell you this. I took out the repairs, vacancy, and capital expenditures on this property. So this is saving nothing to the side every single month. You make $269. So it's barely a break even. So pros, you're gonna have low repairs and vacancies, so you might be able to pull that off. You can sell it later if you want. You get properties out of the names under an LLC. You don't have to furnish it. You avoid paying high taxes because you're going to refinance. Cons are your cash flow is low. You have to get another LLC, which means a new K1, new credit cards, new everything. Or if it's under car rentals, that's fine too. Other con is you still can't use it as a vacation home. So these were the 4 options we talked about. The other 3 options I came up with was I don't even know if we could use a 1031 exchange to sell it because technically we've had it in our name for longer. I don't know if it becomes a new property with the house on the land. That might change things. The other thing is we could try to refinance and then sell it just to avoid some of the capital gains tax we would pay. And last is we could try to rent it out medium term, which I didn't run the numbers on, but I saw what they run for on Airbnb. Seems like we could rent out the house monthly for $5,050 to $6,050 per month. A few things to keep in mind. I think 10, 15 years appreciation will be good in the area because they're building stuff. People are moving to Florida. People love Florida now, so everyone's going there. This area specifically was the highest appreciating in 2021. It's possible for us to rent now and then try renting, and if it doesn't work, we could sell it. It's flexible. It doesn't have to be as bad. Hurricanes do happen there, but like one of the worst ones in history just happened and the house was fine. So I think that's a pretty good thing, at least for the next couple of years or so. If we sell it, we should definitely reinvest the profits ASAP. And my opinion is that cash flow is better than cash now. So let's vote.
I think it really depends on how easy it is to get a long-term rental because that is the most beneficial option.
I think you should try and do long-term rental for now, and then if it's either not working out how you thought it would or not making enough money, I think you should sell it and use that profit towards another house.
I think you would definitely do a long-term rental because it doesn't make sense to sell it now if you're going to lose money after all those years. Short-term rental doesn't make as much sense because you're going to have a better ROI, you're going to have more cash flow on a long-term rental. And as you said, you don't think the property is really going to appreciate within the short term. It's going to be a number of years before a property appreciates. So the most profitable option really to just rent it out for the long term.
Papa?
Long term for sure.
That's what he wanted anyway. Now, if you want to see my entire portfolio, cent by cent, on how much I make from each of my rental properties, click the video on screen right now, and I'll catch you all in that one.